All right, welcome to the Lawyer's Emotional Intelligence Book Club. My name is Dave Scriven-Young, a lawyer focusing on litigation, environmental law, and construction law from Chicago, Illinois. We're helping to create the next generation of lawyers with high emotional intelligence through a weekly book club and daily practical posts at facebook.com/lawyerseq. During our book club discussions, we'll do a deep dive into books that will help us develop emotional intelligence skills, specifically think about how we can begin to use those skills in our law practices. I'll be here live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central for this discussion, and it is a discussion. Please liberally use the chat box. We should be on Facebook, Periscope, or Twitter, and YouTube. So use the comments box to ask questions or make comments. I should be getting all of that in my chat. I'm using the restreaming software, so hopefully I'll see everything. So I do want to see your comments and discussion. I don't sit here as an expert. On the contrary, I will be learning along with all of you, and I'm really interested in hearing your opinions and observations. I look forward to learning from all of you. How are we doing on the commenting? Okay, so I have my lovely wife here, Kathy, who is trying to get me some sense. I don't see any coming up for Facebook, although it has been posted. So she's going to pull up a chair and read me off whatever comments come our way. But I just wanted to welcome you into discussion here. So let me just turn on the camera here. All right, so welcome everybody. Good to see everyone. Thanks for joining. And today we're going to begin Dr. Rangan Chatterjee's book, The Stress Solution, right here. And hopefully we'll have a good discussion. So let's just start through the slideshow for today. All right, so for those of you who don't know, haven't seen this show before, a little bit about me. I'm an attorney, obviously. I graduated in 2003 from DePaul University. I'm senior counsel at Picard Abramson PC, mostly known as a construction firm based out of New Jersey, and we have a Chicago office. I'm a civil litigator. I also practice construction law and environmental law. My mission is to identify and share historically correct knowledge and resources in an inspiring and hopefully entertaining format in order to help others meet and exceed goals and standards in every area of their lives. So I do that with this vlog, this video cast. I also have a podcast called the Lawyer Lifestyle podcast, and then all the other various seminars and things that I do. So just to catch everyone up, what did we talk about last time? We talked about what is emotional intelligence. It's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and social management. And we talked about how we can find out what skills we have and which are strong and which ones we need some help developing. There's the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 test, which you can take and decide and find out which skills you're not so great at, what you're a little weak at, and which ones you can work on. The nice thing about emotional intelligence is that these are skills that you can develop over time, which is what I'm doing with this book club, what hopefully you're doing as you follow along with us as well. And we began with self-management, and we talked about how we can accept and adapt to change. And then we began to talk about stress. All right. So let's move on to what we're going to be talking about today. We'll just scope out a little bit of the agenda. We're going to talk about some recent news, which is the ALM Mental Health and Substance Abuse Survey that came out. And that had some very eye-opening statistics that I thought everyone should be aware of. We're going to talk a little bit about last week's action item, which dealt with exercise, and I want to really hear your comments and how you did for the week. And then we're going to begin talking about Dr. Chatterjee's book, The Stress Solution, the consequences of stress, how stress builds, the 4 pillars of health to get under control. And then our first sort of pillar is purpose. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and then our weekly action item for the week. So that's what we're planning on doing for tonight. Just a little bit of disclaimer, I have to do this because I'm a lawyer. This is not a replacement for necessary psychological or medical treatment. If you feel deeply depressed or suicidal, please consult a doctor or other medical professional. I am a lawyer, not a doctor. Very important that you know that. So let's move on to recent news. So there was an article 2 days ago by Dylan Jackson. Law firms want to improve mental health, but they're failing to take preventative action. And it discussed the ALM Mental Health and Substance Abuse Survey that was released. And it was 1999 responses that happened in 1999 to the survey. So this was obviously before the pandemic occurred. But it really had some eye-opening results. So out of 1,300 total survey respondents, 31.2% of lawyers feel that they are depressed. 64% feel that they have anxiety. 10.1% feel that they have an alcohol problem, and 2.8% feel that they have a drug problem. So let me just go to the camera here. And so I'm really interested in hearing and seeing your comments on this. I mean, it was a very sort of eye-opening statistics to me that 31% of people feel that they're depressed, and so many more feel like they have some sort of drug or alcohol problem. And but the art interesting about the article is the statistics, but then they went on to say, well, what are firms doing about it? And they talked a little bit about the wellness initiatives that a lot of firms have. Obviously, this show, hopefully is helping that regard as well. But the interesting part about it is that it talked about that the survey responses felt that their law firms, despite all of the wellness initiatives that occurred, law firms actually weren't doing a whole lot to get at the root problem, which is things like the billable hours, like the expectations, like all of the things that firms place on, especially associates, younger folks. Maybe they do it to weed them out, who knows? But it was interesting that the respondents actually felt sort of, I don't know, depressed about being depressed, because the response was, yes, I feel this way, and there's really nothing that's going to happen because law firms are never going to get rid of the billable hour. They're never going to do anything to really, improve the situation from a systematic point of view. And so I don't know how people feel out there who are watching, but I think there have been ever since I started practicing, people have talked about getting rid of the billable hour and things that we can do to improve our daily lives. And not a lot of those initiatives have really taken hold. And so, it is incumbent upon us to challenge those assumptions and to go out of our way to help the situation. But as for the younger folks who are watching this or will be watching this, what can you do when you're at a big firm whose leadership is not really interested in helping or improving those systematic problems? Yes, maybe they put in a wellness initiative, maybe they hire a therapist, but they're really going to do nothing to really take care of the root problem. And so that coming up out of the associate ranks, hopefully we'll be able to make those changes. All right. So let's go back into the PowerPoint here. So let's talk about last week's action item, which was because we talked about exercise and how exercise and putting a break in your day is really going to help. Last week's action item was every day for the last week to add a 30-minute session of physical activity to your schedule, to record how you feel afterwards, and to record at night how your day went and if the exercise actually impacted your stress level. And so would love to hear sort of what you have to say in terms of how things went for you for the last week. What I can tell you from my perspective. So I started out the week doing about 30 minutes of cardio right in the beginning of the day when I woke up, and then and that was good. I mean, I felt pretty good afterwards. Um, but I'm sort of a morning person anyway, so I don't know if I could really say, wow, that I felt that much better after exercising than I would have anyway in the morning. What I can tell you is that in the afternoon, it did not really seem to make that big of a difference in terms of, like around 2, 3, 4 o'clock is when sort of my stress levels went up, and so that really became an issue. And so I wanted to change up my routine a little bit. I got a suggestion from a couple of ABA friends online who saw my sort of midweek update, and they suggested, why don't you try some yoga in the morning instead of cardio? So I did that, and then I tried in the afternoon to get out. So like yesterday, I went out, took my dog out, and it was actually a really good break. So I don't know how other people's exercise routines have changed since the pandemic, since everyone has pretty much been shut down. But my routine has been much different because obviously I don't have a commute. I don't have to walk to the train. I don't have to, go out at lunch. Actually, we're, told to stay indoors. So everyone's routine is different. My routine is much different. And so I think it's really important to put a little bit of a break, of a planned break into your day. So hope everyone got a little bit of exercise and thought about sort of how their stress was and what you can do. But I think for me, and everyone is different, obviously, but for me in the morning, I'm usually fine, after I get up, but it's sort of that afternoon break that I really need. All right, so let's move on to that second emotional intelligence skill, which is how to not let stress get the best of me. And we're going to go through The Stress Solution by Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. So a little bit of an introduction. He actually really gave us two different ways to look at stress. One is micro stress dose of stress, and the other is a macro stress um, dose. The micro stress is all of the little things that come into our lives. And it was interesting. He sort of had this story about, like a mom who wakes up and all of the little things that can happen throughout the day. So he talked about, like, the alarm going off in the morning. Then, looking on her phone and seeing that, like, her friend is on vacation somewhere when, has to be at home. Then, maybe she gets a phone call or something like that. And then, she gets up and, she's out of toothpaste, or, something else, bad happens. And then, she tries to get her kid up and her kid, yells at her and wants to go back to sleep. So all of the very little things that could happen are all stressful, right? And so he calls those micro stress doses. And then there's the macro stress doses. Those is what he calls adverse childhood experiences. So, really bad things that happen in the past. And what he says is people who have these adverse childhood experiences actually are living more close to the stress threshold than most. So for some people, it takes many, many, many micro stress doses to get to that threshold to where it would really sort of put you over the top and cause problems. But for people who have experienced these macro stress doses, it really takes fewer of those daily doses to cause problems for your health and for other things. And as you can imagine, okay, um, as you can imagine, the stress piles up, and it has the power to generate more stress. So it's kind of like a building mechanism here. The more it piles up, the less we're able to cope, and the nearer we move to the threshold at which we're unable to manage our lives successfully. And that's kind of that's the threshold. So we might fall out with others. We might binge out on bad food and alcohol. So all of those micro stress doses combined with the macro doses really combine to have a really bad effect. And as you know, stress can have a devastating long-term consequence for health. So the statistic that he gives in the book is that up to 80% of all general practitioner consultations are thought to be somehow related to stress. So it has a really big impact on our lives. So the stress solution, what is it? How do we get back to normal or get to where we're not reaching the stress threshold? Well, he talks about having the difference between a thrive state and a fight or flight state, which is sort of the stressful state. In order to get to the thrive state, to get to the thrive state, we need our entire ecosystem, that's body, mind, and spirit, to be impacted by, so that the information that they're receiving leads them to know that I'm safe and not under threat. That's the thrive state. The stress state, or the fight or flight state, is where there's sort of a threat of danger. And all of your systems believe that you're in danger. So what happens is adrenaline is released, your heart rate is increased so that more blood and oxygen are pushed out into the muscles. And then cortisol is released, and that's where you're in that fight or flight state. And the interesting thing is that, our stress responses that we have were designed really to only work over a short period of time against immediate threats. So like, I don't know, dinosaurs, or, very, sporadic things that could happen, real immediate things, then our stress response could kick into gear. And we're actually designed to live most of the time in our thrive state. But because of the way modern society is, there are so many stress triggers that activate our stress state that we spend more and more time in the stress state rather than the thrive state. And that can have serious consequences for our health. And I'm just going to open up the book, and there's a chart that says healthy stress responses and their dangerous long-term effects. So there are, short-term health responses that are healthy, and then you have a long-term harmful effect when it happens over a longer period of time. So when you have a stress situation that occurs that raises your blood pressure, in the short term, that helps actually transport more blood to your brain. But that could be harmful on a chronic or long-term condition, because it could lead to chronic high blood pressure, and that increases the risk for diseases like heart disease and stroke. You have, on a short term, increased blood clotting will save your life if you have a bleeding wound, because bleeding will stop more quickly. The long-term harmful effect is that you have a long-term tendency for the blood to clot, and that'll increase your risk of having a stroke, heart attack, or deep vein thrombosis. And then I'll just take one other one. The body's resources are directed away from digestion on a short-term health effect, and that's a non-essential function for survival at the moment. But on a long-term perspective, if the attention is diverted away from digestion for too long, you could have digestive complaints like constipation, bloating, indigestion, irritable bowel syndrome, that sort of thing. So the short-term healthful effects that stress cause over a longer period of time could be very harmful and very unhealthful. And the other thing that can happen is that stress can also change your brain, and it lets your emotional part of your brain get stronger while the rational part of your brain becomes de-skilled. So how do we get to the thrive state more often and for longer? And we do that by focusing on our attention on four areas that represent potential sources of stress and potential sources of thriving. So if you think about it, all of these four areas have potential to help you thrive or help or potential to be very stressful. So first is purpose. So in other words, what is your purpose in life, and are you living your life purposefully? Second is relationships. Everyone knows that you can have a relationship that puts you in the thrive state, or that will put you in the stressful state. Your body, same thing, right? Either you have a body that will allow you to thrive, or you have a body that allow you that will make you stressed out. And then finally, with your mind, do you have a mind that allows you to thrive and that it's sharp, it's going to allow you to solve problems, or do you have a mind that's cloudy, that doesn't remember things? And so those four areas are what we're going to be tackling in the stress solution. So let's just begin, and we're going to talk about purpose for the next two episodes. And the way that I think I'm going to work this is we're going to talk about, so there's, I think, three ways to get at purpose in terms of tactics. The first one, well, let's see if I can find it. Yes. Okay. So the three habits that we're going to talk about are affirmations, reframing, and gratitude. So today we're going to talk about affirmations. We're going to introduce purpose and talk about affirmations. The next session we're going to talk about the tactics of reframing and gratitude. And again, I think the way I'd like to work this is to talk about sort of like a Tim Ferriss sort of experiment. So do something for a week, see how it goes. If you want to incorporate it, then that's great. If not, you can just ditch ditch that area. But at least it's something that you've tried and you think about and see if it helps. Okay, so let's dive into purpose. So purpose means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but in this discussion, purpose means to live your life on purpose. It means and it also means sort of like, what is the purpose of your life? Because we know that a life that is devoid of purpose is inherently stressful. So, and what Dr. Chatterjee says is that the best way of living a calmer, happier life is to do it with a strong sense of purpose. So, just thinking about it, if you are doing something where you feel like it really aligns with who you are, that you're doing it on purpose because it's part of who you are and you really enjoy doing it, well, you're not going to feel as stressed out about it. You're really going to feel really going to get into what you're doing if it's part of your purpose, right? And so that's why it's important to, number one, live your life on purpose, but also align what you're doing with your purpose as well. So the question is, are you living your life on autopilot? Are you trying to be what other people want me to be? And what behaviors that I inherited from my family do I want to change? So looking at your life, what do you want to do with it? How do you want to align what you do with your purpose? So I guess the question is, how do we start to live our life on purpose? Well, a good way is to start thinking about the following questions. So number one, why do we bother getting up in the morning? Number two, do we purposefully want to achieve certain things? And number three, do my unhealthy choices have their origins in not being in touch with my true purpose? So, and we talk a lot, there's a lot of, a lot of research, I think, that goes into why people have unhealthy choices. But I think a lot of it turns out that it's stressful. It's either stress that's making you do it, or it's some sort of, maybe it's like a genetic thing, or maybe something that you saw your parents do that leads you to those unhealthy choices. So the problem that we've, I think, come across in this society is that we need time to find out what our true purpose is. And that's exactly what the modern world steals from us. So in other words, if you're so busy with so many things that you don't have time to think about what you actually want to do with your life, and you're just going from moment to moment because that's what things are planned out. But you're reacting to things more than actually planning how you're going to spend your time. That's the world sort of stealing your time from you and stealing your true purpose. So we're going to have some exercises over the next several weeks about how to plan better and what we're going to do in terms of what our purpose is. So the first thing we need to do is get in the right mindset to find our purpose. And there are 3 habits of calm that will help us to significantly reduce stress and put us in the right frame of mind for tackling the questions of meaning and purpose. So we're going to talk about the habits to get our thoughts in the right place so we can start seeing the good that's already there and begin to shift attention away from the negative and into the positive. So as I said, there are 3 ways that we're gonna do that over the next couple of weeks. First is affirmations, which is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about reframing, and we're going to talk about gratitude. So again, I'm not saying that all of this is going to work for you. I'm not even saying that this is going to work for me. What I'm saying is these are great ways to experiment. Maybe it'll work for you, but it won't work for me. But we'll see as we go along. And that's why it's important that we sort of build this community that all of us know that, well, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but we'll give it a try and we'll experiment. So what's an affirmation? Probably everyone who's watching this, has heard the term, but it's a short, powerful, and positive statement of intent that's regularly repeated. So the theory behind it, and this guy's a doctor, so I have to believe that there's some science behind it as well. But you have to change your thoughts, and you lay a new blueprint for your mind. So you're essentially programming your mind for what you want out of your life. And so if you think about it, I'm sure that you've noticed, if you watch a movie or watch a TV show that maybe has a certain bent or has a certain, either it's funny or it has a lot of violence or what have you. Whatever you put into your mind is what you're going to think about, at least in the short term. So the theory is that the more you think about what you want out of your life, and the more you program your mind for what you want out of it, then you're going to change your thoughts and hopefully lay a new blueprint so you can think more and plan more to go in the direction of where you want to go. So here are some tips for affirmations. So you definitely want to write down your affirmations. You want to think about what you may consider to be negative qualities and flip them on their head. You also want to experiment with different affirmations. And as you say the affirmation out loud, imagine yourself as that person. You want to say the affirmation every morning and repeat the phrase as often as you can throughout the day. And of course, feel free to change your affirmations, and I would suggest it. Maybe start for a couple of days using one affirmation and then maybe move to another one, maybe just to get the experiment of doing it. So that's where today's weekly action item comes into place. So we're going to write down qualities that you'd like to change, and then flip them around and write down 3 affirmations. So if one thing, and I'm definitely this, if you feel stressed out, you feel like your day is stressful, most of your day is just stressful, maybe your affirmation could be, I am calm and stress free. Or if you feel sad, if you feel maybe a little depressed, you might say, I choose to be happy. Or if you feel like maybe you're not as healthy as you could be, your affirmation could be, I am the architect of my own health. And these are not not ones I wrote, but these come from the book. But I think all of those actually could apply to me as well. So what I would recommend is choose one to start with. For the next 7 days, say it in the morning and repeat it throughout the day on whatever schedule is best for you. And then write down at night how you feel and how you feel about the qualities that you want it to change. So, in other words, if you are saying over and over again, I am calm and stress free, do you actually feel calm and stress free? Or is the fact that you're trying to remember these affirmations, is that stressing you out? And that's sort of, I think that is going to be the balance as I look forward into the future. Is it going to stress you out more by having to remember these affirmations, or as you go through it, is it going to be just something where you don't have to remember it, but you're definitely going to just know it by heart, know it by rote, and so you're going to be saying it sort of subconsciously throughout the day, and that hopefully is going to be the way that you're going to be able to remember it, and that it's going to be the way to change your mind. So hopefully when we come back next week, we will. Was there a comment?
No, I'm writing out mine.
Oh, my wife is writing out her comment, or her affirmation, which is great. So hopefully, yeah, all of you are, taking out a sheet of paper and actually writing out an affirmation, and would love to see what your affirmations are, and we'll see how it goes next week. So next week, we are going to, again, report back on how things have gone. And then we're going to talk about, we're going to move on from into the purpose category to what's called reframing the day. So sort of reframing things that happen to you, reframing events, and thinking about it in different ways. So we'll talk about that next week. And then we're also going to talk about gratitude and how gratitude can help align with your purpose as well. And then we're going to talk, later about things like how to schedule your time, which is going to be interesting because I never feel like I have enough time. So that'll be great for me. How to live more. And then we'll head into relationships. So I think, unless there are any other folks that want to discuss or any questions that come up, just remember that emotional intelligence is necessary for all lawyers, and we can learn these skills together. And just remember that, in fact, these are skills that you can learn, that you can develop over time. And so if you have specific questions or you want to discuss offline, I am at Attorney DSY on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can reach me there. I also have a LinkedIn profile, obviously. And then, this is my, contact information, name, address, phone number, and that sort of thing. But it's been a real pleasure being with you tonight, and hope to see you all next week. So take care, everybody. Good to see you. Bye-bye.